Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about this Shrines build led by Sisay Weatherlight Captain I've had for a number of years. We'll go through the list, check the stats, talk about how to play it, and highlight important card interactions as usual. The Avatar The Last Airbender set brought 5 new shrines and a panda spirit with it, so I made some tweaks recently and squeezed 4 of the shrines and the panda into the list. Not all shrines are created equal, and the list is getting pretty tight, so not all make the cut. The 2 shrines I have left out are Sanctum of Shattered Heights from M21 and Kyoshi Island Plaza from Avatar. Sanctum of Shattered Heights is an okay source of creature removal, but there's a lot of variance. We need to have enough shrines in play and lands or shrines to discard, so it's been cut for now. Kyoshi Island Plaza grabs basic lands, and we only run 4 of those. We have plenty of ramp and big mana already, so this one can stay on the bench. We can easily swap commanders to change it up. Sisay, Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, and Heibai Forest Guardian all lend themselves to the plan and make fine commanders. A strength of the deck is that it doesn't lean on the commander particularly hard. I like Sisay since she comes down early, scales up, and becomes a big attacker or defender, and tutors shrines and other powerful legendary things directly to the battlefield at instant speed. It's great to flash shrines in at the opponent's end step and get their effects right away. Good surprise factor. At its core, this is a Selesnya Enchantress deck. You'll see a lot of the usual stuff in that regard. We use the Enchantress engine to draw into the shrines and put as many onto the battlefield as we can to start snowballing to victory. We have alternate ways to win too though. This isn't an Enchantress deck that draws all the cards and can't win. We can do plenty of powerful game-winning moves. It builds up slowly, but there are 3 game changers, and Enchantress often has a natural advantage since enchantment removal tends to be less common, so this deck fits nicely in bracket 3. There are some pretty pricey cards, especially in the mana base, but fortunately a lot of them have budget-friendly substitutes. Fear not. Now on to the list. Creatures first, starting with the shrines from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Go-Shintai of Ancient Wars is a 2/2 first strike for 2 and a red, and allows us to dome an opponent or planeswalker for damage equal to the number of shrines we control at the end of turn. It's a decent defender that can do quite a lot of damage as we get more shrines down. Go-Shintai of Boundless Vigor is a 1/1 trample for 1 and a green, and allows us to put +1/+1 counters equal to the number of shrines we control on a shrine at end of turn. Usually the counters go on itself since it has trample, but the other creature shrines can be fine targets too, especially the blue one since it has flying. Go-Shintai of Hidden Cruelty is a 2/2 with Death Touch for 3 and a black, and allows us to destroy a creature with toughness less than or equal to the number of shrines we control at end of turn. A decent source of repeated removal as we get more shrines down. Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom is a 0/4 with flying for 1 and a blue, and allows us to mill cards equal to the number of shrines we control at the end of turn. Note that we can mill any player, including ourselves. It's unorthodox, but if we have a replenish in hand, we might consider milling ourselves. Go-Shintai of Shared Purpose is a 1/3 with Vigilance for 3 and a white, and allows us to create 1/1 spirits equal to the number of shrines we control at end of turn. We can create a wide board quite quickly with this. And finally, Go-Shintai of Life's Origin is a 3/4 for 3 and a green that creates 1/1 shrines whenever it or another shrine enters, significantly powering up all of our shrine effects. We can also pay Wooburg and tap it to return an enchantment in the graveyard directly to the battlefield. These are powerful abilities that make it an excellent alternate commander if you want to mix it up. Now on to the non-shrines. We have our Argothian Enchantress, a real classic that comes down early to start drawing extra cards whenever we cast an enchantment. She has Shroud too, making her a little more difficult to remove. Sithis Harvest Hand is another powerful Enchantress. She comes down early like our Argothian Enchantress and gains life in addition to drawing cards. She's an enchantment herself, so our enchantment tutors can find her and she will trigger various enchantment effects. We have a few more Enchantress creatures in Verduran Enchantress, Mesa Enchantress, and Satyr Enchanter. These draw a card whenever we cast an enchantment, and that's all. Verduran and Mesa Enchantress are 0/2s, and Satyr Enchanter is a 2/2. The power creep is real. And the last of the Enchantress creatures are Citizen Champion and Eidolon of Blossoms. These draw cards when an enchantment enters rather than on cast. Great synergy with token copies of enchantments or the little shrine creature tokens Go-Shintai of Life's Origin makes. Citizen Champion quickly becomes a heavy hitter as well, very powerful. Herald of the Pantheon, Inquisitive Glimmer, and Jukai Naturalist all reduce the cost of enchantment spells by 1. Herald of the Pantheon also gains life when casting enchantments, a nice little bonus, and Jukai Naturalist has lifelink, which can be quite impactful, especially if we're able to buff him up. Sanctum Weaver adds mana based on the number of enchantments we control, a callback to Serra's Sanctum. It's an enchantment itself, so it will always add at least 1 mana, enchantment tutors can find it, and it will trigger various enchantment effects. Composer of Spring is a 1/3 for 1 and a green, good defense in the early game, that helps solve one of the problems of Enchantress builds, drawing a bajillion cards and not being able to play them all. This lets us dump a land out of our hand whenever an enchantment enters, ramping us and enabling us to cast more stuff later. It snowballs pretty hard. Once we have 6 enchantments, we can also dump creatures out of our hand. Very powerful. Dryad of the Elysian Grove ramps us and fixes our colors. It's a 2/4 for 2 and a green, so it's solid on defense in the early to mid game too. It's an enchantment, so enchantment tutors can grab it if needed, and it will trigger various enchantment effects. Calyx, Guided by Fate, is a 2/2 enchantment creature for 1 green-white that puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature whenever an enchantment enters. On top of that, whenever he or an enchanted creature we control deals combat damage to a player, we can create a token that's a copy of a non-legendary enchantment we control. We usually copy our enchantment-based ramp and enchantment-based removal, but we can also make copies of Ghostly Prison, Eidolon of Blossoms, all kinds of busted stuff. Moonblessed Cleric is a 3/2 for 2 and a white that tutors an enchantment to the top of our library when it enters. We can get anything we need: card draw, removal, ramp, shrines, you name it. Archon of Sun's Grace is a 3/4 with flying and lifelink for 2 and 2 white that creates 2/2 flying Pegasus tokens whenever an enchantment enters. It also grants those tokens lifelink. We can quickly build up a big air force with this and deal a ton of damage and gain lots of life. Heibai Forest Guardian is a newcomer from Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a 4/4 for 3 and a green, and when it enters, it reveals off the top until we hit a shrine, then puts it directly into play. We can also pay Wooburg and tap it to create a 1/1 spirit that can't block or be blocked by non-spirit creatures for each legendary enchantment we control. That's all the shrines, plus Calyx and Sithis. The essentially unblockable spirits can end games in a hurry. These abilities make it a powerful alternate commander if you want to change things up. Yenna Redtooth Regent is a 4/4 for 2 green-white that creates non-legendary copies of enchantments we control, as long as they don't have the same name as another permanent we control. Basically, this gives us 1 extra copy of a shrine or any other enchantment we control. We have lots of powerful stuff to double up on. Next we have Zur the Enchanter, another classic. He's a 1/4 with flying with a powerful attack trigger that tutors enchantments with mana value 3 or less directly to the battlefield. We can get shrines, removal, card draw, anything we need. Always happy to see this guy. Getting into the top end for creatures, we have Doomwake Giant, a 4/6 for 4 and a black that gives all creatures our opponents control -1/-1 whenever it or another enchantment enters under our control. An excellent one-sided sweeper. Ondu Spirit Dancer is a 3/3 for 4 and a white that creates a copy of enchantments that enter, but only once each turn. 2 Sanctum Weavers, 2 Eidolon of Blossoms, lots of awesome stuff to double up on. It also works well with the new shrines from Avatar, since they all have ETB abilities. They're legendary, so you can only keep 1, but getting 2 ETB triggers is very powerful. And finally, we're making a big jump in mana value for Summon Bahamut, a powerful saga creature from Final Fantasy. It's a 9/9 with flying and 4 powerful chapter abilities for 9 mana. The first 2 chapters destroy any non-land permanent, the third draws 2 cards, and the fourth burns our opponents equal to the mana value of other permanents we control. It's amazing by itself, but what if we copy it with Calyx, Yenna, or Ondu Spirit Dancer? This is a fantastic, over-the-top way to close out games. We have 2 sorceries and 3 instants. There's Idyllic Tutor, which can grab whatever we need, similar to Moonblessed Cleric. This puts it directly into our hand though, so it's even better. Replenish is a powerful reserve list card that returns all of our enchantments, including auras, from the graveyard to the battlefield. Luckily, there are budget versions of this effect, including Eganjo Dynastorian from the new Secrets of Strixhaven Commander decks. We can turn games upside down with this one. Enlightened Tutor grabs any enchantment and puts it on top of the library at instant speed for a mere 1 white. Very powerful. And then we have 2 protection spells in Teferi's Protection and Heroic Intervention. These protect us against Austere Command, Bane of Progress, and other sweepers. Now it's time for the enchantments. Let's go over the shrines first. Sanctum of Tranquil Light costs a mere 1 white and taps creatures down for a single white if we have 4 other shrines. Very powerful defense and offense. It can help Calyx get through to copy enchantments, for example. Sanctum of Stonefangs costs 1 and a black and drains opponents for X and gains us X based on the number of shrines we control at the first main phase. An excellent way to close out games and/or stay alive. Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest is 2 and a green and adds X mana of a single color based on the number of shrines at the first main phase. We draw lots of cards and this helps us cast them all. Sanctum of Calm Waters costs 3 and a blue and draws X and discards 1 based on the number of shrines at the first main phase. We're going to dig through the deck real fast with this. Sanctum of All is the big one. It costs Wooburg, and at the beginning of our upkeep we can search the library and/or graveyard for a shrine and put it directly onto the battlefield. And if we control 6 or more shrines, triggered abilities of other shrines trigger an additional time. Busted. Honden of Infinite Rage costs 2 and a red and deals damage equal to the number of shrines to any target at our upkeep. Pick off problem creatures, keep planeswalkers down, or go face. Very powerful. Honden of Cleansing Fire is 3 and a white and gains us 2 life for each shrine at our upkeep. As we set up more and more shrines, opponents are going to notice, and this can help keep us alive long enough to lock things down. Honden of Night's Reach costs 3 and a black and makes a target opponent discard a card for each shrine at our upkeep. This can be super brutal and salty. Deploy this one carefully. Honden of Life's Web is 4 and a green and creates a 1/1 colorless spirit for each shrine at our upkeep. Great for defense and sometimes offense too if we buff them up with Calyx or some other effects that we'll see in a bit. Honden of Seeing Winds is 4 and a blue and draws a card for each shrine at our upkeep. Like Sanctum of Calm Waters, we're going to dig through the deck real fast with this. And now the new shrines from Avatar. There's Northern Air Temple, which costs 1 black and drains opponents based on the number of shrines we control when it enters, and also drains for 1 whenever a new shrine enters. This can help keep us alive or act as a finisher. Pretty good for a single black. Spirit Oasis is 2 and a blue and draws cards equal to the shrines we control when it enters, and also draws a card whenever a new shrine enters. More powerful card draw. Crescent Island Temple costs 3 and a red and creates a 1/1 red monk with prowess for each shrine we control when it enters, and creates a monk whenever a new shrine enters too. We can cast a lot in a single turn in some circumstances, so these guys can become quite dangerous. Don't underestimate them. And finally, Southern Air Temple is 3 and a white and puts a +1/+1 counter on all of our creatures for each shrine we control when it enters, and puts a +1/+1 counter on them whenever a new shrine enters. Needless to say, this makes a great finisher. especially with Heibai's essentially unblockable spirit tokens. Also great with Pegasi from Archon of Sun's Grace or with Hallowed Haunting. Now on to the non-shrines. We have some enchantment-based ramp in Utopia Sprawl, Wild Growth, Fertile Ground, and Trace of Abundance. Awesome in enchantment-based decks, obviously, but I've realized I should probably play them in other decks more often too. They don't get swept up as much as mana dorks and artifacts do, but play similarly. Flickering Ward is an aura that grants a creature protection from a color for a single white. Great for making a huge Sisay or Calyx unblockable to sneak in for massive damage. But the real power of this aura is that we can return it to our hand for a single white. This enables us to repeatedly cast it to draw lots of cards with Enchantress creatures, or get massive buffs with Calyx, or create a huge army with Archon of Sun's Grace, Hallowed Haunting, and Sigil of the Empty Throne, or wipe the board with Doomwake Giant. It may not look like much, but this is one of the more powerful pieces in the deck. Sterling Grove costs a white and a green and gives our other enchantments Shroud, a nice bit of protection. We can also pay 1 and sacrifice it to search for an enchantment and put it on top. Great utility. Sylvan Library costs 1 and a green and says, at the beginning of your draw step you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put the card on top of your library. This helps us dig down to find the best stuff, basically. Don't hesitate to pay the life early on, and if you find Sanctum of Stonefangs, Honden of Cleansing Fire, or Northern Air Temple, definitely don't hesitate. Turn that life gain into card draw. Ghostly Prison and Sphere of Safety force our opponents to pay mana for each creature they want to attack us with. A great deterrent that can buy us extra time. If we have enough enchantments, Sphere of Safety may well stop attacks altogether. Grasp of Fate, Song of the Dryads, and Leyline Binding are powerful enchantment-based removal. I especially like Song of the Dryads because it shuts down commanders without destroying or exiling them. Next up, Hallowed Haunting is an enchantment for 2 and 2 white and gives our creatures flying and vigilance if we control 7 or more enchantments. A pretty powerful buff. And whenever we cast an enchantment, we create a Spirit Cleric token with power and toughness equal to the number of spirits we control. Great synergy with Honden of Life's Web, Go-Shintai of Shared Purpose, and Heibai Forest Guardian. Sigil of the Empty Throne costs 3 and 2 white and creates a 4/4 angel with flying whenever we cast an enchantment, giving us something with a little more heft to help close out games. Very powerful with Flickering Ward as mentioned earlier. And finally, there's Starfield of Nyx, a powerful enchantment for 4 and a white that allows us to return an enchantment from the graveyard to the battlefield at our upkeep. And if we control 5 or more enchantments, it turns our other non-aura enchantments into creatures with power and toughness equal to their mana cost. This can give us extra surprise attackers to help close out games, but it can also be a liability. Creatures are easy to destroy and sweep away. Think carefully before deploying this one. And now a quick look at the lands. There are 37 of them, a few of which do more than just add mana. There's Serra's Sanctum, another powerful reserve list card, and one of our 3 game changers. This will help us cast all the stuff we draw, including the mighty Bahamut we saw earlier. Hall of Heliod's Generosity taps for colorless, or we can pay 1 and a white and tap it to put an enchantment from the graveyard on top of the library. We also have Boseiju Who Endures, which we can play and tap for a green, or activate its channel ability to efficiently take down an artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land. And finally, there's Otawara Soaring City, which we can play and tap for a blue, or activate its channel ability to bounce an artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. And the rest of the lands just give us our colors. I happen to have ABU duels and like to play with them, but it's easy to swap those out and build a more budget-friendly mana base. 10 shock lands, 5 to 6 fetch lands, a couple triomes, a couple surveil lands, and a bunch of your favorite budget dual lands will definitely get the job done. Let's check the stats. Here's the category breakdown as usual. Take a look at the deck list in the description and enable tags to see what's what in more detail. The deck is overwhelmingly Selesnya with a little blue and just a hint of black and red. The mana base mirrors that closely and rarely has trouble. The mana curve is fairly low to the ground, essentially topping out at 5 mana. This makes it easy to do classic Stormy Enchantress turns. Now let's talk gameplay. As far as openers, the best starts tend to be 3 lands, something that ramps, and a shrine or 2 with different colors. This powers up Sisay's tutoring so we don't have to start at the bottom and pay Wooburg to get Northern Air Temple or Sanctum of Tranquil Light first. If Sisay can be at 4 power by the time we have the mana to tutor, that's pretty good. We can go grab great 3-drops like Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest, the Spirit Oasis, or Calyx Guided by Fate to increase her power further and really start taking off. There are 2 main paths to victory. Make big boards of spirits, Pegasi, angels, or monks and smash face, or massively power up Sanctum of Stonefangs or Honden of Infinite Rage and watch our opponents despair and eventually accept their fate. A secondary plan is to get Bahamut and make copies of it with Yenna, Calyx, and/or Ondu Spirit Dancer and smash face while you wait to get to the final chapter ability.
You can't do that.
Wrong.
A bit of a long shot, but incredible to pull off. There are a few ways to easily get Bahamut into play. One is big mana from Sarah's Sanctum, Sanctum Weaver, or Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest. Simple. Another simple method is Composer of Spring with 6 enchantments in play. Easy. And a more complicated method is to get it into the graveyard and reanimate it with Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, Replenish, or Starfield of Nyx. Sanctum of Calm Waters can get him into the graveyard, or you can tutor it to the top with Enlightened Tutor, Moonblessed Cleric, or Sterling Grove, then use Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom to mill yourself. If we eat a board wipe and lose some of our best pieces, we might be able to get them back with Replenish, Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, Hall of Heliod's Generosity, or Starfield of Nyx. It's not the end of the world. The deck can make huge comebacks. Never give up. Zur the Enchanter. What to do with this guy? Other than fetching up shrines, one of the best things he can do is fetch up Song of the Dryads or Grasp of Fate to remove problems. Something cool to know about auras. When you cast an aura, it targets the permanent you want to enchant, which means Hexproof or Shroud will stop it. But if an aura enters without being cast, as with Zur, Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, Starfield of Nyx, Calyx copies, and so on, it attaches to a legal permanent or player as specified by its enchant keyword. You choose a legal permanent as it enters, then it attaches, bypassing Hexproof and Shroud.
No way! Yes way!
This makes Song of the Dryads and similar cards like Imprisoned in the Moon and Darksteel Mutation very powerful. An ace up the sleeve for the Avacyn with Lightning Greaves and other shenanigans. Use this knowledge wisely. Other than that, Zur can fetch up Sithis to get some card draw and life gain going, or Calyx so we can possibly make copies of busted stuff like Song of the Dryads, Ghostly Prison, or dare I say Bahamut. A lot of possibilities with Zur. Speaking of Song of the Dryads, Grasp of Fate, and Leyline Binding, what happens if they get phased out by Teferi's protection? Not to worry, the rules are on our side. In the case of Song of the Dryads, the permanent it's enchanting will return to its original state while the song is phased out. When it phases back in, it phases in attached to the same permanent, turning it back into a forest land. If the permanent it was enchanting is no longer on the battlefield, the song will go to the graveyard. Nice! In the case of Grasp of Fate and Leyline Binding, nothing happens. Any permanents they exiled will stay in exile, because they only return if the enchantment leaves the battlefield, which it has not. Another small win for us. Another cool interaction to be aware of is Yenna and Calyx. Yenna makes non-legendary copies of enchantments, which Calyx can then copy if he hits an opponent, allowing us to get many copies of powerful shrines. This gets out of hand real fast. 4+ copies of Sanctum of Stonefangs or Honden of Infinite Rage will end games in no time. Brutal. Or if you want to do something unexpected, you could make multiple copies of Calyx or Sithis and go to town. That's all for now. Shrines, and Enchantress in general, is a fun archetype to play and experiment with if you haven't already. It's a great way to teach your friends, and yourself, about the importance of enchantment removal if nothing else. If you want to increase the power, you could try going for a Jockle Hops and Obliterate plan. Those destroy everything except enchantments, leaving us with shrines that can then take over and finish the game. That's mass land denial, so we're getting into bracket 4 and we'll need to make some additional swaps. Take out Archon of Sun's Grace, Yenna Redtooth Regent, Doomwake Giant, Ondu Spirit Dancer, Sphere of Safety, Sigil of the Empty Throne, and Hallowed Haunting. Top end stuff that doesn't really fit the new plan. Put in Swan Song, Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting Swat, Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Jockle Hops, and Obliterate. Efficient interaction to protect the big moment, and a couple more tutors for consistency. Get 4+ shrines into play. Sanctum of Fruitful Harvest and Sanctum of Calm Waters are top choices to help us rebuild. Float a bunch of mana, cast Obliterate or Jockle Hops, then drop Sanctum of Stonefangs after it resolves and drink up the salty tears. We could also try sticking Bahamut and Starfield of Nyx, then obliterating for style points. We could take it even further and fundamentally change the deck by switching the commander to Heibai, stripping out most of the shrines and only keeping the best 7 or 8, and putting in a Blink package. You can get shrines into play very quickly and consistently this way. Fill the rest of the slots with additional ramp and interaction. You'll be able to get enough shrines and fire off the Obliterate or Jockle Hops earlier and more consistently. Ruthless. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.